Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first quantum leadership session for 2025, which was brought by the QBN, so the Quantum Business Network. My name is Mila Kurunovska. I'm the Marketing and Event Manager at QBN, and I will be your moderator for today's exciting discussion, which will be dedicated on the topic of quantum cybersecurity. It's really an honor to be here with such a distinguished group of experts and participants. And in today's session, we'll actually explore one of the most pressing issues in the world of technology nowadays, and namely how we can prepare our IT infrastructures, data, and cybersecurity strategies for the age of powerful quantum computers. As we face the potential disruption of quantum computing, basically we need to understand the impact it could have on sensitive data, financial systems, and national security, and most importantly, what steps we can take to safeguard ourselves. So therefore, today we are joined by our four outstanding QBN members. The first one is Pascal Debus, who is the head of the Quantum Security Technologies Group at Fraunhofer, ASEC, and who will discuss the topic of security despite, for, and with quantum computers, risks and chances for quantum computing for IT security. This discussion will be followed by Duncan Jones, who is the head of cybersecurity at Quantinuum, and who will share also his insights on quantum tokens securing digital assets with quantum physics. Next will be Fabian Klingmann, who is a PhD student in the field of quantum communications at Fraunhofer Institute für Photonische Mikrosystem, who will discuss an Arduino-based low-cost quantum key distribution system. And also, finally, we have Mark Kaplan, who is the CEO at VeryCloud, who will conclude the session with a presentation on the Quantum Enhanced Data Center. I need one moment to actually share the screen. So here we go. These are the four distinguished speakers that I just briefly introduced. And together they will guide us through the current state of quantum cybersecurity and help us really understand how to protect sensitive data in the quantum era. Basically, through QBN's quantum leadership sessions, we bring together top leaders from the quantum space to share their visions, innovative solutions, and collaborative efforts, basically highlighting their role as pioneers in this rapidly evolving field. So therefore, we would like to make sure to subscribe. We would like to make sure that you subscribe to the QBN YouTube channel so that you stay updated on all upcoming sessions and to really watch previous ones at your convenience. So let's really quickly go over the agenda for today's session. We'll start with a brief overview of QBN, which will be done by me. And then this will be followed by a short presentation from my colleague Haysam Hanafi, who is the Quantum Technology Manager at QBN, on the topic of quantum communication and cryptography. Then we'll actually hear from our esteemed panel of speakers who will share their insights and solutions on how we can protect our data from the risks posed by quantum computing. It's important to mention that after every talk, we'll open the floor for a brief Q&A session of around 5 minutes, where we really encourage you to submit your questions either through the Zoom chat or on YouTube as the session is being live streamed. So yeah, please feel free to engage with us throughout the session, and we will be sure to address as many questions as we can for these 5 minutes. And before we move forward, I would like to briefly talk about our upcoming quantum leadership sessions. These sessions are really designed to bring together thought leaders and experts in the quantum space to discuss cutting-edge topics and the latest advancements in quantum technology. And we encourage you really to visit our website, where you can register for the listed on this slide sessions and stay informed about all our upcoming events. So again, really make sure to sign up early so that you don't miss out on insightful discussions which are yet to come. And then this brings me to the next slide, where I would like to take a few moments to really provide you with a brief overview of QBN and what we do. As many of you may know, QBN is really Europe's leading organization in the quantum industry, basically working at the forefront of quantum technology development. We often define ourselves as a one-stop shop for quantum vendors, facilitators, and end users. And QBN provides access to a dynamic international network, together with a fast-track funding and tailored business opportunities that ensure our members stay ahead in this rapidly evolving field. And importantly, through events like these and today's session, we aim to foster further collaboration, share knowledge, and drive forward the development of quantum-safe technologies. Moving to the next slide, I would like to really go over the QBN services, which are organized into two main key pillars: the Global Innovation Network and the Business and Innovation Services. So when it comes to the Global Innovation Network, the first pillar, I would like to highlight that through matchmaking, we connect companies with the right collaboration and business partners within the quantum value chain. And we also advocate for quantum technologies, guiding policy development, and create a supportive environment through lobbying. So two very, very important services. In addition to that, with access to both private and public funding, we leverage our deep tech investors and funding expertise to support companies' projects. In addition, our technical working groups provide a platform for collaboration, knowledge exchange, and market insights across the value chain. QBN also helps increase companies' visibility by promoting their product launches, events, or even job opportunities to our extensive international trusted network. The Business Forum offers a practical knowledge, really, and experience on critical topics like intellectual property, sales, marketing, and investment. And finally, the access to our content hub is really valuable because it's filled with industry reports, videos, and really presentations to keep people informed. When we move to the second pillar, which is the business and innovation services, I would like to highlight that our strategy workshops help companies to really unlock business potential by addressing challenges and building on strengths to scale their operations. QBN also offer technical due diligence and investment advisory, aligning your strategy with the latest quantum trends and technologies. QBN also really supports business and use case development, helping end users leverage quantum technologies in line with their own strategy. And we further assist with fundraising, partnerships, offering hands-on support to connect people and companies with investors and strategic partners. In addition, QBN educates decision makers and supports governments in developing and implementing actually effective quantum commercialization strategies. Our market studies and business intelligence provide tailored insights really to guide data-driven decisions. And we also help companies explore new markets and expand really internationally with lean strategies and strong business support. When it comes to the QBN membership, one thing to really stress is that the QBN membership is international and available to corporations, institutions, organizations, and really other entities working in the field of quantum technologies and its value chains. All types and sizes, from large companies to SMEs and startups, research and technology organizations, university faculties and labs, government agencies, investor and accelerators from all parts of the value chain, from hard and software vendors to really investors, facilitators, and end users. And of course, even further information can be found on the website. So I strongly encourage you to definitely visit our website for more detailed information. Moving on to the next slide, I would really like to present the QBN members. So QBN basically has grown up rapidly, now with over 100 members spanning the entire quantum value chain. from component suppliers to really full stack developers and providers and end users across industries like quantum computing, communication, and sensing. And these members are really working together to drive commercialization and industry adoption. And being part of the QBN mission really means joining an influential global network at the forefront of quantum innovation. So again, the QBN website really contains all the valuable information about our members. So this really makes it easier for companies and people to connect and really foster meaningful business relationships. So therefore, I strongly encourage you to visit the website. Moving to the next slide, this slide really represents, I would say, the great success that QBN has managed to achieve in the last years by building really strong network of more than 100 international members. We've held global events and conferences, established 4 industry task forces and 5 technology working groups, initiated endless partnerships, and overall arranged of more than 200 million euros in private and public funding. So these are things that we are really proud of, next to the fact that QBN has successfully expanded its global presence, reaching of over 20K, 20,000 online followers overall across our social media channels, and really making a strong impact both digitally and in person worldwide. So we have really established also close ties with governments at both European and international levels. And we often ask ourselves how we can drive the quantum industry further together. And yeah, the answer is that the success isn't just in numbers, it's really in the strength of our collaborations. So when we work together, we unlock greater opportunities and foster faster innovation. So therefore, we invite everyone to join QBN who is ready to take the step to the next step in their professional journey. So moving to the next slide, it's really the final one. I would like to say that having said all that and having presented the QBN, I really invite everyone to join forces with QBN in the common mission of building a resilient and sustainable quantum economy together. Again, feel free to really subscribe to our social media channels, to our YouTube channel as well for on-demand access to sessions like these, for example, webinars and of course other content. And again, for those really ready to take the next step, we invite you to sign up on the QBN portal to become part of this transformative network, and really join us today and help shape the future of quantum together. So with this being said, and without further delay, I would like to invite my colleague Haysam Hanafi, the Quantum Technology Manager at QBN, who will actually give a brief presentation on quantum communication and cryptography. So Haysam, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for the great introduction and also for the great overview of QBN and its activities. And yeah, I'm very happy that we gathered today here in parallel to the opening of the International Year of Quantum Science and Technology by the UNESCO. So it's also showing how important quantum is and it's becoming. And yeah, before diving into the expert talks, I would like to give just a short motivation on why it is important that we engage now in quantum. And yeah, the first point would be that breaking classical cryptography by quantum computers is a very, very big threat that we are facing right now. And yeah, even if now maybe the computers are not strong enough to encrypt the data yet, typically tech devices have a lifetime of maybe 10, 15, or even more years. So that's why it's important that we engage already now into this, because if we want to have our, for example, car or our smart factory running for more than just 2-3 years, then we should already now take the right measures to be also quantum ready in the future. And another very big risk, which is also something which will be arising in the future, is you can store now and decrypt later. So even if now the quantum computers are not yet strong enough, you can already now store sensible data, very important data, for example, from companies. And even in the future, if they will be decrypted, this will have an immense impact and will be very, very bad for the company and for the business. and then also obviously for the security of the country. And for example, the NIST has also recognized this and also bans from 2035 RSA and ECDSA based algorithms to be improved. And also they are already recommending that you should now already take over. And just, yeah, if I didn't, let's say, motivate you yet enough, just looking a little bit on the fact or on the numbers. So looking, for example, on the economic impact that cyber threats have in Germany. So just in 2024, last year, more than 267 billion euros are estimated to be damaged only by espionage, by countries, and by data theft from different industries. So this is like an immense risk that it is giving to German companies. And only 180 alone were caused by cyber attacks. So that's why we should really act now. Next slide, please. So, and if I say we should act now, so who is affected mainly from this threat? So actually, I would say everyone. So it goes from companies, so industries, over to the private person securing his own data. So everyone actually is impacted by the threat, which are, for example, caused by computers to decrypt data. And yeah, the different industries are reaching from classical telecommunication. So talking about our telecommunication system and messaging ways, for example, going or reaching over to critical infrastructure. And yeah, together with, for example, governmental entities or ministries, it's yeah, a risk to the defense and to the sovereignty and security of a country. So, and other than that, also for obviously the classical industries like energy, logistics, finance, and healthcare. And all of them already need now to act on that. Next slide, thanks. Yeah, so how to protect? So what can you do now to solve this issue, to protect, to be quantum ready? And I would say the first answer is to engage. You should engage now. You should already now work on the topic. You should understand quantum. You should build your own workforce in that direction. And yeah, we have, let's say, two main areas where QBN can mainly support you. So for the quantum vendors, you can become a QBN member, you can join QBN member, and you can expand your resources and your influence. And you can also benefit from tailored services that we're offering. And as an end user, you can explore the potential of quantum for your business to develop a quantum strategy and implement it. And within the QBN community, you can also ask for help from members, from experts, in formats similar like today we are having in this quantum leadership session. And you can also benefit from tailored services. Next slide. Yeah, and here you can see the two memberships that we are offering, especially for these two different parties. So for the quantum vendors or the classical, let's say, quantum tech people, and as well as for the industry end users. And you can see here just some of our services and activities that we are offering for these different activities, for these different areas. And yeah, one thing that I would like to highlight. So if you are an end user, if you are an end user and you are interested in the QBN end user membership, even free for SMEs. So reach out to us and we can get you involved. Next slide, please. So in the following, I would like now to discuss or show you two services that are relevant for the quantum communication community. And just to highlight them, actually one of each of the pillars that was just presented by my colleague. So one of the Global Innovation Network and the other one from the individual services that we are offering. And as you heard from my colleague, we have 5 technical working groups. One of them is on quantum communication and cybersecurity. And the work group leaders are Alessandra Mattes from QTI and Michael Kaspar from Fraunhofer Singapore. And we have different goals and activities in our working group. And yeah, our main goals and activities are first to raise awareness and educate on quantum communication and cybersecurity to enhance knowledge and increasing acceptance of QKD. Furthermore, we would like to foster collaboration by connecting academia, industry, and key stakeholders across Europe, and also, again, the knowledge exchange and to promote joint activities and initiatives. Furthermore, we support also policy and standardization by advancing European QKD certification, also supporting a strategic alignment and regulatory frameworks. And finally, also accelerate technical adoption by addressing QKD limitations, by integrating quantum communication systems into existing infrastructure, and also fostering industry-driven innovation. And yeah, how do we achieve these kind of goals? So by different activities. The first, as already mentioned, is engage end users to understand perspective and demonstrate usability through different real-world applications. Furthermore, facilitate networking and collaboration via events, workshops, and also structured matchmaking between academia, industry, and policymakers. Furthermore, bridge advanced communities, so including also the classical telecom experts, cryptographers, and cybersecurity professionals, together with the quantum people or quantum technology people, to also ensure a seamless integration of quantum secure communication. Furthermore, also by develop policy insights through white papers, strategic reports, and engagement with policymakers to support the European roadmap and for quantum safe networks. And finally, also by advanced technical readiness by addressing different QKT limitations and supporting their, as I said, sanitization and real-world application deployment. Yeah, next slide, please. And another service that I would like to highlight, which again now goes more to the individual support, is the support for entrepreneur startups and SMEs in form of a coaching. And yeah, so why should you be interested in a coaching, and especially why now? So the fundamental question would be here, what are the key challenges of quantum startups and SMEs that they're facing now? And from our members, we know that some of the main pain points for the target group is first, the complexity and uncertainty. That meaning that many startups developing groundbreaking technology, but they often lack a clear business model or maybe a go-to market strategy. So this would be the first point. The second would be the limited resources that many of the startups have. So typically they are very good in the technical part and they are doing it, but for example, they don't have the internal capacity for example, handling scaling, sales, or investors relation alongside technological development. And this is again where the coaching can support. Furthermore, also specialized knowledge, which is required. So traditional business strategies don't easily apply to quantum industry. For example, challenges in talent acquisition, certification that we're challenging, or ecosystem partnerships. These are all unique problems to deep tech and especially for quantum communication. And there again, specialized coaching is very, very important. And yeah, so there where the coaching is then exactly coming in, and how does this coaching work and what it is based on. So it is based on three different pillars, I would say. The first is being the audit. So an audit where first we will assess the gaps, or in other words, also the potential through the growth potential that you could have, and also identifying what is preventing you yet from scaling. And then based on that, there will be a workshop to again further analyze this kind of growth potential and develop a concrete strategy on how to tackle them. That might include refining the business model or maybe funding opportunities, as well as ecosystem building or scaling approaches. And these advices are not just generic or say very general advices, but really tailored to actionable solutions and also tailored to deep tech and to your company. And then finally, also the implementation, because it is good to have maybe good information and resources, but it is more important to also support by the implementation. This is also where we can support. So to support you in your journey, how to implement it, to track with you the KPIs and see that you're matching or that you're fulfilling them. And so these three pillars are based on the coaching. And so if you finish with that, so what is the outcome from you? What is the best for you? So first, you will have a clear understanding of the gaps and or positive formulate the growth potential. Second, you will have practical tools and approaches for funding, sales, and scaling. And lastly, you will have a customized roadmap with actionable items that you can work on. And and what makes this coaching unique that QBN can offer compared to other coachings that you might find. So first, it is not generic, it is not generalistic, it is really tailored for deep tech and for your company. Second, we not only give you the information, but also we can directly provide you with the access and to the ecosystem, because we are developing the ecosystem. As you heard from my colleague, we are the world leading business association, and that's why you can directly access the community, the network, and the ecosystem. And finally, it's hands-on. So you really get actionable items and solutions to your model and yeah, to help you. So you have the technology and we help you to turn this into a scalable business. So, and if you saw yourself in one of these positions, just reach out to us, contact us. We are very happy to collaborate and work with you. Thanks from my side. Giving back to my colleague.
Thank you very much, Haysam, for that insightful presentation. And now I'm actually thrilled to introduce the first speaker from our 4 panel speakers today. So he will actually, he will really share his insights on how the rise of quantum computing is impacting data security and what steps we should be taking to protect sensitive information. I'm happy to introduce Pascal Debius, who is the head of Quantum Security Technologies group at Fraunhofer ISEC. So yeah, please, I will stop sharing my screen. So yes, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ludmila, for the invitation and the nice introduction. Let me quickly try sharing. Yes, this works, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So yeah, my name is Pascal Debus from Fraunhofer ISEC. And the title of my talk is Security Despite For and Which Quantum Computers? What is this supposed to mean? To answer this question, maybe we first have to establish some perspective on quantum cybersecurity, and there is actually a narrow perspective. And there's also a broader one, which I hope in the next 20 minutes I can at least to some degree bring nearer to you. But let's start maybe with the question, what is quantum cybersecurity? And probably the setting that most of you are most familiar with is we have some hacker now, which is quantum enabled with a quantum computer. What will he do with it? He will attack our classical crypto, break it. We have already heard about these different attack modes. They're store now, encrypt later. There is Moscow's theorem, which tells us we basically have to start yesterday. And yeah, fortunately, we also already did. What can we do as the defenders in this situation on a very high level? Basically, there are 2 main tools in our arsenal, which are post-quantum cryptography and QKD, or quantum communication. And this is more or less the typical understanding of quantum cybersecurity that most people have. But to now broaden this perspective a little bit, I will call it security despite quantum computers. And what more is there? So basically, quantum computers are around now. We already have them to some degree. And with them, there also comes a lot of supporting technologies. There's classical compute stack. There is the control electronics, the cloud to make this all conveniently available. And now, since they are around, they also can be a target of hackers who can attack them across their full tech stack, not just the QPU, but basically all there is. And again, we, as the good guys, the blue team, sort of need to think about how to protect this whole new computing paradigm with its tech stack. And this is cybersecurity for quantum computers. And now, finally, the last issue, it is the case that classical IT security has been around for quite some while now. I mean, we still have classical computers. We have the cloud, as I said, we have classical software. Now we additionally have quantum computers and quantum software, and whatever you might come up with regarding additional IT infrastructure. And here also, it's also the case that attackers have been attacking our IT infrastructure for decades now, with or without, in particular, without quantum computers. And so the interesting question now is, if we also have now a blue team that is enabled with the quantum computers, is there anything we could try to do better using this quantum computer? Are there any actual productive applications of quantum computing that can be used for quantum security and for improving classical IT security. And the three parts I just showed to you is actually the core part, the three main pillars of ISAC's quantum mission, a sort of holistic approach to quantum cybersecurity. This slide is a little bit more overwhelming, but what I hope to achieve is to give you in the next couple of minutes a few examples of what this can mean concretely. So let's just start with the one that probably everybody here is most familiar one, security despite quantum computers. And here the traditional solution is, of course, post-quantum cryptography. That's also where our institute, Fraunhofer ISAC, has its historical roots at the intersection of quantum computing and IT security. And over the years, all our activities in that regard have sort of grown into a whole competence center for post-quantum cryptography. There is quite a large portfolio of research projects going a different direction, mainly focusing on implementation and migration aspects, because that's actually the thing that's most relevant now. To give you just a few examples, there is basically PQC for public key infrastructure, for virtual private networks, all on a higher protocol level. There is some specialization when trying to implement this on embedded systems or card-based security, and library implementation issues. And there is way more beyond that, but since the other talks will focus on PQC and QKD also, and the other two pillars are usually a bit underrepresented in this quantum cybersecurity setting, I will focus on the second two pillars more. But for those of you who want to know more, we actually have an annual update meeting at ISAC that is hosted at our institute every year, usually around May. Registration is not open yet, but you can subscribe to our newsletter and then be the first who can sign up there for that. And there are also more topics, more recent topics, and so on. And I would be happy to see you all there. So then there is the next topic, security for quantum computing. And before we talk about that, there is often some slight misconception on what a quantum computer actually means. And so let's clear that out first. It's just the point that quantum computers is not the same as a QPU. QPU is just where the qubits are located and manipulated. But as I already said before, there is usually a lot of additional classical hardware, control electronic, cloud access software, and so on involved. And based on this, we can now go into a little bit more detailed view how a typical workflow between a quantum computing customer and some sort of cloud-based quantum computing as a service provider looks like, or might look like in the future. And on the very left, you see that there is usually some quantum use case, business case, and involved with this, there is sensitive data, maybe machine learning training data, data on molecules, portfolio weights, you name it, which is then transformed using some quantum software development process, usually with the help of some vendor-provided software development kit, to transform this into some sort of quantum circuit representation, which then in turn gets transmitted to the cloud, will end up in some job queue, gets optimized, transpiled into some hardware-specific instruction set, and then finally run on the hardware. And then the whole thing goes back, maybe some post-processing of the results, and will, at least in the future, hopefully bring some added value to this business case. And now from a security perspective, from a security for quantum computers perspective, we are particularly interested in the attack vectors that could happen along this whole path. And a common technique to identify them is to first look at the most valuable assets in this process. And then also define some protection goals along with it. So, for example, the prime target in any IT architectures, typically the proprietary data, or maybe the business value that is brought about by obtaining a solution from a quantum computer. But it may also be just an availability attack, like somebody trying to disrupt the services of the quantum computing vendor or the services of the quantum computing customer, which uses quantum computing to maybe provide some downstream service to a different customer base. And where can we now attack this? Here are some examples. And as you note, some of them are pretty boring or pretty classical in a way. They occur everywhere still in the wild. There might be insecure encryption of data in transit. There might be a malicious SDK, either directly or via some insecure supply chain. The API might have vulnerabilities, but on the other hand, there are also some new and interesting attack vectors now that are focused specifically on the quantum components. And I would like to highlight two here. And of course, this has no claim to complete this whole diagram. So let's first look maybe at noise injection, which is quite an quantum intrinsic attack vector, so to say. And with this example, the attack makes some assumptions, and that's in particular that at some point in the future, the QPU will be run in some sort of multi-tenancy regime, which means that circuits of multiple users are scheduled together and then run simultaneously on the same QPU. And this is some reasonable assumption, because I don't know if you've tried the quantum computing services these days. The quantum computing time is quite expensive. The queues are rather long, and this is definitely a measure that would improve overall resource utilization on both sides, the vendor and the customer. However, in the NISQ regime we are right now, it is to some degree possible to, in a way, weaponize crosstalk of the qubits by, for example, in the superconducting case, you can choose a circuit that consists only of, for example, CNOTs in close vicinity on the actual QPU chip to a victim circuit, and just run CNOTs all the way. And on ion traps, what you can do in ion traps, you have the possibility to shuffle ions around between two traps. And this is also some mechanism if two users are on the same trap, that the attacker could trigger this shuffling very often. And the basic idea is here that this causes large additional errors for the co-tenant victim circuit, which in the end might lead to completely useless results. So this is definitely quite an interesting vector that one can consider in the future. Next is reverse engineering via some side channel attacks. And the basic idea with this attack is that at some point, the circuit that the user provides will be transformed into some pulse schedule. And this pulse schedule is then passed on to the control electronics, be it arbitrary wave generators, lasers, or whatever the modality is there. And it is possible, and was also shown, that you can extract side channel information from the power consumption of this microwave electronics, and use this information to some degree reconstruct the pulse schedule, and with it the quantum circuit. That's not the only side channel. There's also timing side channel, and some of this is even working in the before mentioned co-tenancy regime. I find that also quite fascinating, and the most important point is that once you're able to reconstruct the quantum circuit, you not only have the maybe proprietary algorithm in in the regime we are in right now, it is also often the case that the actual data is also directly encoded in the quantum circuits. This might be training data in quantum machine learning, or again, portfolio weights, or some indirect encoding of an Hamiltonian operator of a molecule or something like that. And this makes it possible, with some additional context on the overall problem, to eventually reconstruct it fully, which is sort of the worst case when you send your data in the cloud. So these were just two examples. Now let's switch to the last topic, security with quantum computers, looking for productive use cases of quantum computing. This is a very wide field, and there is a very wide range of potential applications. Here, I will only present three of the topics our group at ISEC is focusing their research on. And those three are quantum-assisted anomaly detection, software verification, and adversarial machine learning. Adversarial machine learning is grayed out here, but the main idea behind this is just investigating robustness of quantum machine learning algorithms. How do they behave under specifically crafted input manipulations? What defense technologies do we have to make this whole thing more reliable? Yeah, as I said, I will not cover that and show you anomaly detection first. Why anomaly detection? The reason for this is that this is basically one of the most stereotypical use cases at the intersection of machine learning and IT security. There are dozens of applications there, like spam detection, endpoint detection, network traffic, anomaly detection, fraud in financial transaction data, whatever. So it is definitely interesting to take a look if maybe quantum machine learning techniques could provide an advantage here. What does advantage mean? The holy grail there is always, often at least, speed up, but it's also usually the most difficult to attain. And but not the only metric, because after all, we don't want mediocre results, just exponentially faster. So accuracy is also important, and also sample complexity, which means the amount of training samples I need to achieve a certain level of accuracy. Especially, I mean, it's for large language model, it's largely irrelevant because there's so much data, but in medical applications, there tends to be rather fewer training data. And finally, robustness, which is the whole topic of quantum adversarial machine learning. One example for this is so-called quantum kernel methods, which are particularly popular in the current NISQ regime. There are also some theoretical guarantees that there is a speed-up advantage available. There are also some theoretical guarantees that there might be a sample complexity advantage available. However, one of the disadvantages of this is that these type of methods typically scale quadratically with the data set size, which implies a lot of scalability issues for larger data set. And for this, we published some work last year to move this down to a linear complexity in the training data set size, with a rather low impact on the accuracy. And this works fine and allows us to benchmark data sets that are larger than usual. However, before I move into the next example, maybe one disclaimer. We make no claim here that this could beat any classical machine learning algorithm. Right now, this is rather fundamental research. We're just looking what is possible in general and how could it be improved, how could it be scaled up. As I said, there are some theoretical guarantees that the search for these methods is not in vain, so to say. But similar to Shor's algorithm, there is no way right now one could actually demonstrate this in an application. So not yet an easy win here, and still, yeah, a lot of work to do. Then the second or final example I brought is quantum computing assisted software verification. And in particular, what we mean here is formal verification methods, which allow you to show that a certain piece of, maybe critical software is provably secure. And the reason this is not done much more often also for classical software is that this does not really scale, unfortunately. And just to give you some intuition why this is the case, consider the short C code snippet on the very left. What you want to do is to show that this function f will never evaluate to 3, because then something bad happens. And in order to do that, formally, you have to consider the full value range of all the involved input variables, ABC, and you have to look at the control flow of this piece of code. And at every decision point in this piece of code, you generate a path, and attached to this path is some sort of path condition. And you need to identify those paths along with their conditions that you want to basically never happen. And the problem is that the number of paths doubles with every decision point, so this grows exponentially, and this is exactly the hope, the point where you could hope for quantum computing once more, either by solving the resulting Boolean satisfiability, but you could also try to go a little bit higher on the level of linear inequalities. Then this becomes the so-called satisfiability modulo theories SMT problem. And to conclude, what we did also last year is take this and create a first proof of concept where you can actually go end to end from a very simple snippet of C code together with some formal verification tasks, and then go all the way down to a quantum circuit or a family of quantum circuit that will solve this problem, meaning you get the measurements result and you can answer that verification problem. And this also works, but again, I have to give a disclaimer here. This also means this is by no means yet competitive with any classical theorem solver like C3, but it shows the possible directions you could go. It also shows the obstacles you have on the way and what needs to be further investigated with respect to scaling these solutions up and at some point even make them competitive or better than C3 in the future. And yeah, this was now a very fast and quick journey through what I hope is the extended universe of quantum cybersecurity. And I would like to conclude with 3 key takeaways. Of course, PQC and QKD are extremely important right now, especially considering the timescales rolling out that whole new cryptography infrastructure that we need in order to do that. So yeah, we need to act now. But what I also want to point out is that now is also the time to try to incorporate some security by design principles in the actual development of current quantum computers. Do it early this time, do it now instead of once more adding some hastily and costly ad hoc solutions later on. And finally, this is the positive point. Instead of only focusing on the risks and threats involved, it is, I think, worth to also look at the chances of quantum computing for improving IT security. And yeah, that's why I also brought a couple of examples for that today. And yeah, with that, I thank you for your attention. And of course, I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Pascal, for your valuable input. The presentation was really informative. And I actually also would like to open the floor to questions. I would like to also remind that, yeah, please feel free to ask your questions in the Zoom chat or in the YouTube comment section, and I will be definitely sure to read them out to our panel to address. So basically, there is one question in the YouTube comment section asking if you could provide insights on exploiting environmental noise or on deliberately triggering decoherence in quantum circuits. So it would be, yeah, great if you could shed some light on the role of decoherence in quantum cryptographic systems.
Quantum could, let's go back maybe to this one. So actually, decoherence is an effect that will happen by itself. You don't really need to trigger it. You have to fight against. What you can try to do is sort of enhance this effect. And I mentioned this example of superconducting qubits. There is always some unwanted leak. Yeah, microwaves that go beyond the qubits they are intended for. This is exactly what the origin of crosstalk is. And all you have to do as an attacker at that point is sort of try to optimize the noise that is brought about by these imperfections in the control electronics. I'm not sure if I got this question perfectly, but
yeah, I think that this explains more or less. If there are any additional questions, yeah, I would kindly invite everyone to add their additional questions in the YouTube section or in the Zoom Q&A chat. So yeah, thank you very much, Pascal, for your valuable input. With that being said, I would like to switch to the next speaker. So Duncan Jones, head of cybersecurity at Quantinuum, who actually discussed the topic of quantum tokens, securing digital assets with quantum physics. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Sharing my screen. So to some extent, Pascal stole my thunder. I had a whole sort of opening spiel planned where I was going to say that so often when people talk about quantum cybersecurity, they are blinkered and they only think about QKD and post-quantum cryptography, and that's about it. So I want to applaud Pascal for giving us a glimpse of some of the range of topics that truly fall underneath this spectrum. And my contribution today is to try to extend that spectrum even slightly further and talk about some new concepts that we've been looking at Quantinuum for using quantum technology as a positive force in cybersecurity. So I'll kick things off just very briefly. If you have not encountered Quantinuum before, we are the largest quantum computing company. We've got getting on for 600 people around the world working on all aspects of quantum computation. A lot of them are scientists, so we've got quite a nice critical mass of scientific know-how within the business. And we focus on, I guess, the sort of whole range of compute-related topics that are showing promise. Everything from the development of market-leading quantum computers. So going back to Pascal's discussions earlier, we are in the trapped ion category, which has the benefits of actually very good fidelity and so perhaps more resistance to decoherence than some modalities do. So we have hardware, we have middleware, and that's sort of the compilers and the sort of nascent operating systems and the ways of using these sorts of machines effectively. And then we have different application sort of silos focused on areas where we think there will be some benefit. So we were hearing about AI just a minute ago, and that's an area that we think is critical. And actually, our focus there is more around how can we use quantum computers to generate data that only quantum systems can generate to feed into AI systems to help with drug discovery or all sorts of other things. But my day job is to lead the cyber group, and we focus on using quantum technology to make cybersecurity stronger. And our primary focus is actually on the topic of quantum random number generation. So we are actually using our quantum computers to generate random data and proving that this random data is exceptionally high quality so that it can be used in very sensitive security systems. But today I'm going to talk about something that's a bit more on the emerging side. And to understand this topic, we need to leap back in time to the 1980s. So back in the 1980s, some of the seminal papers that were laying the path towards quantum key distribution were being written. In particular, there was a paper in 1983 by Stephen Wiesner that really is one of the critical pieces of work that led to the quantum key distribution industry as it exists today. And the idea behind QKD is that we can leverage quantum effects and particularly things like the no cloning theorem to enable us to securely share information that we can be sure that has not been eavesdropped, at least not without our knowledge. And so this is what most people think about when they think about the outcomes of Wiesner's papers. But actually, buried in his paper, well, not really buried, actually, it was idea number 2, was that we could also use systems like this to represent money. So using Pascal as my favorite example today, supposing I want to send Pascal some money, I maybe don't trust Pascal, and I would quite like that if I were to send him a bit of money, he can't somehow turn that into 2 bits of money and defraud the system that I'm running. And using some of these same quantum principles, we can actually create systems that enforce those sorts of properties. Now, there are many reasons why this hasn't taken root yet. It's limited in some of the same ways that quantum key distribution is limited today, with distances and decoherence again of a different kind. But one critical thing is also that we don't have the ability to actually store this money. So we don't have wallets for our quantum money. We can't start representing money as quantum states and sending it around the world if we're not able to store it for more than a few seconds or minutes, or perhaps, maybe in the best case, I think I've seen an experiment that does this in about an hour or something. But this picture is from a few years ago now, but it was one of the best diagrams I found for showing the wide range of efforts going into storing quantum information, but also how difficult it is. So for at least quite some time to come, we're not going to be in a situation where we can store quantum information, and that's one of the hurdles preventing us from adopting this kind of system. And this is now where quantum tokens enter the picture. That's the subject of today's talk. And so quantum tokens provide us with a way to get many of the benefits of full-blown quantum money, but without having to rely upon a quantum memory of any description. So for the rest of this talk, I'm going to first explain a little bit about some of the benefits that you can get from using quantum tokens. And then I'll explain at a relatively high level how these things work, and then where we're going next with this technology. So starting with the benefits. So there are 3 main benefits that we can obtain using technology like quantum tokens. And the first and important one, I think, is that we are actually able to realize the benefit of unforgeability. So this is sort of what I was hinting at earlier with, wouldn't it be great if Pascal can't copy the money that I sent him? Well, actually, using the techniques I'm about to explain to you, we can achieve that with quantum tokens without using quantum memory. And so this allows us to build potentially financial systems that are more secure than what we have today, or at least maybe don't have to have quite so many counter checks and measures to prevent people from fraudulently copying money in some sense. The second benefit is around how the transactions themselves actually unfold. So because of the way the protocol is structured, we're able to do almost instant validation of transactions. So there's no need to go back to some central authority to double check that there's enough money in that account for this transaction to go ahead. We can avoid that completely. And that means that we potentially can have very fast transactions. And it also means that we could have transactions completed when there is no connectivity potentially between the place we're spending our tokens and the rest of the financial infrastructure. And the third property is privacy. And maybe that's a given these days, but it is important in a financial system that nobody knows what you're going to do with your money before you choose to spend it. And so it's important that that sort of privacy is maintained, even if we bring in exotic technologies like quantum. So to further explain these properties, we can maybe talk a bit about systems that we use today. So in particular, let's think about how these three properties apply to banknotes or physical cash of some description. So going through these sort of from top to bottom, I think it's clear that we cannot achieve or claim unforgeability when it comes to physical money. It's certainly not unconditional unforgeability. If you take a 10 euro note to the local shop, as long as the person in the shop believes that seems like a note, you can spend it, right? So we know that there are potentially problems there. But there is local validation. So in that shop, the person who takes your money doesn't have to check anything. They just take your money and give you whatever it is you're buying. So there is local offline validation. And there is also user privacy. I've got money in my wallet right now, and you guys have got no idea what I'm going to go spend that on. I don't even know yet. And so that's kind of inherent in the system. So now let's look at what we can do with classical cryptography, which I've provocatively called classical crypto, because I'm trying to steal back the word crypto from the cryptocurrency people who think they can just take that from cryptographers, which is not okay. But anyway, if you dig around the literature and you think about potential systems with classical cryptography, what you'll find, or at least what we've found, is that you can solve two of these three things, but not three at the same time. And so there's different trade-offs, different systems you can pick. But if you want to try and solve all three of these at the same time, you can't. And this is why we think quantum tokens could be interesting, because they do indeed solve all these three properties at the same time. And to the best of our knowledge, they are the only solution that can tackle these three problems at once. So if you have a financial system or even some other kind of system that has these three problems, then this could be the solution you've been waiting for. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper now into actually how quantum tokens work, because I've been vague up until this point. So let's get a bit more specific. Okay, so I'm going to walk through how a transaction might unfold using quantum tokens. So we're going to see a very simple use case here where we have a bank issuing tokens. We've got a user that might be sort of me or you, and then we're going to have a shop in a minute appearing on the screen. Now, I want to stress that this is almost exactly not the kind of use case I think that we'll ever see these tokens deployed in, but it's a good mental model that we're all familiar with that might help. So to start off with, the token delivery is using quantum physics. It is delivered across a quantum channel. And actually, it makes use of QKD devices. So specifically, prepare and measure BB84 QKD devices can be used to deliver the token to the user. I want to stress here, though, that we're not using the devices to agree a key. We're actually using the devices to do their fundamental sort of preparing of states and measuring of states, but we're not actually taking advantage of the higher level logic. We're using some of the raw data. So the next stage is that the user stores their token. So this is the critical thing, because they're not having to store quantum states. They are actually measuring states, and they store their token data as classical data. And so what they're actually storing is the choices of measurement bases that they have chosen, and also their measurement results. And what happens next is a third stage that we call commitment. So the user now has some data stored classically. Now, this is the trade-off. The trade-off here is because we don't have quantum memories. So we actually do need the user to form a commitment that allows us to trust them later on when they come along. So the commitment stage involves the user sharing some data with the bank, and what they'd share is a sort of encoded form of their measurement bases and also a few other bits of data. And that gets sent around to every potential place where you might be spending your token. So already this implies that it's some kind of closed network, right? Now, at this point, the user has effectively prepared a future transaction. They are going to, they know they want to spend their token in a certain way, but nobody knows what that is yet. So the bank is none the wiser, and all the different places that this token could be redeemed don't know what's happening. And now that is the last moment where there is any connectivity needed in this system, because then when the user comes to redeem their token, the shop in this example has all the information it needs to attempt to validate the token. And if indeed that shop is the place the token was supposed to be spent, then the token would validate, and there'll be no need for the shop to compare with any kind of central system. No need to speak to the bank about whether this is acceptable or not. The transaction just can complete instantly. So this is quantum tokens in a nutshell. You can see it has some quirks, it has some positive benefits, and so you'll see how in a minute this can apply to some real-world use cases. But first I want to just shift gears for a second and talk about some experimental work we've done in this area. So towards the end of last year, we had some of our teams out in Japan, and we were doing some demonstrations of this kind of technology. So we were using quantum key distribution devices from our partner, NEC, and we were also working with our partner, Mitsui Corporation. And together we were demonstrating sharing quantum token data between these devices and performing a basic proof of concept demonstration. So we actually did something very similar to what I just showed you on the diagram earlier, where we had banks issuing tokens, and we had people attempting to redeem tokens in different locations, and they would succeed in the correct location and would fail in the wrong location. So this was actually really quite an exciting event. It doesn't look it right now. We seem to have a picture of everybody looking very serious, but I promise you there was a lot of interest in this as a new concept emerging. So we are now turning our attentions at Quantinuum to use case exploration for this kind of technology. So there are many potential use cases that we can imagine, but some of the ones that are taking our attention right now are clearly anything that involves high-speed financial transactions. So unconditional security or unforgeability is always an attractive ingredient in a financial transaction. But having near instant settlement is quite unusual. And so a system based around quantum tokens may end up offering faster transactions than something based around a classical equivalent. In a very sort of similar way, we're also looking at, there's a trend at the moment towards tokenizing assets. So that means things like, you can buy a fraction of a gold bar by doing some sort of a transaction on a blockchain, and this is being run by banks and legitimate institutions. And so again, we can see some potential overlaps here where perhaps tokens could replace some of these systems. There's a lot of effort going into these systems to prevent double spending and forgeries, and perhaps with tokens we can do better than that, perhaps. And then finally, I put a third example on here just to throw a spanner in the works, because it's not all about financial systems. We can see some use cases for this in things like authentication schemes. And we have some ideas kicking around about access to databases, for example. Maybe you want to restrict access. It needs to be extremely fastly validated, or maybe even offline validated. You want some very high security around those sort of concepts. And so again, we see some paths ahead for quantum tokens here. And that really explains our focus over the next, probably year or so within my group. We're looking to explore how we can commercialize this sort of technology. So selecting these use cases and beginning to build products and services around them. A quick shout out, though, that we are looking to do this. Well, we're not looking to do it alone. And so we're looking to work with industry partners, whether it's finance or otherwise, and also technology vendors as well. So if anybody listening is intrigued by this, then please do reach out, and we'd be happy to talk about this. And we're also not resting on our laurels when it comes to the science behind all this. And so we'll be looking to make further enhancements to the protocols, how they work in different use cases, and also working with QKD vendors to enhance their products as well. So I'll close there and be happy to take some questions. But in summary, this is just a flavor of something different in the world of quantum security. And I think there are many other things like this that are going to come along, different quantum primitives that we can work with. But we're pleased that this was an unusual demonstration in that it used off-the-shelf hardware to deliver quantum token data. And we were able to demonstrate that we could deliver the promises around unforgeability, but also this fast transaction processing, which we think is curious and definitely potentially of value in a number of different use cases. So with that, I will happily take any questions.
Thank you, Duncan, for your insightful contributions. Indeed, very interesting information on quantum tokens that you shared. So indeed, if everyone has any questions, please raise it in the Q&A section or on the YouTube section comment box. Yes, Haysam?
Yeah, thanks very much for the great talk. Yeah, I would like to know, for example, what do you think about money laundering? So when thinking, let's say, or when talking to the classical blockchain and cryptocurrency guys, typically this was, let's say, one of the main issues from governments always raised. So if it's private, and yeah, let's say nobody knows what we are doing, how do you feel governments would maybe react to it? And this also maybe goes in the direction to why Europe, for example, or many countries do not accept, let's say, cryptocurrencies because they cannot really control them. And instead, for example, the European Central Bank tries to get a digital euro, I think by 2028. So do you know, for example, also what kind of technologies they are using to develop their digital currency?
Good questions. So on your first question, so yeah, you're right that in certain cryptocurrencies, there is a challenge with figuring out who indeed is actually holding currency and who is performing transactions. In this system, or in a system based around quantum tokens, you wouldn't necessarily have those same problems. I know I've stressed privacy as one of the properties of this concept, but the property is quite strict. It's about not revealing ahead of time your intentions. But actually, quantum tokens would necessarily work in a sort of a closed system that looks far more like our traditional financial system. So there is a token issuer who would be able to authenticate who is receiving tokens. And once a transaction has been completed, it would certainly be possible, if the system is constructed that way, to record who bought what. The critical thing is there is no need to reveal your intentions before you actually complete the transaction. So we've actually had the same question thrown to us from some of the banking partners we've been speaking with, and yeah, we're happy that this isn't going to bring about the same sort of problems. And then to your other question, I have not looked into specifically how the European Union's planning to digitize the euro. So I don't have a lot of commentary on that, I'm afraid. I'm hoping they're going to use quantum random number generators, just throwing that out there, because
Yeah. I mean, there should be some strategy. I think by 2028 they wanted to publish it or to release it, but I don't know also much about it. So
one thing we did see that was quite interesting was a paper came out recently talking about the cost of migrating the Bitcoin network to use quantum safe cryptography, and it was a non-trivial task in that you have to dedicate a certain amount of the bandwidth of the whole system just to migrate old accounts. So I guess I hope the European Union will build this around quantum safe technology from the start.
yeah, maybe just one follow-up question, since we also talked about cryptocurrencies again and digital currencies. Would also be there some kind of possibilities using, let's say, smart contracts, so kind of programming the digital tokens? So would this also be some kind of opportunity that it could offer, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess quantum tokens are a raw ingredient, a bit like other cryptographic algorithms might be, and so I guess there's no reason why you couldn't embed workflows relating to quantum tokens in smart contracts or in any other kind of system of computation, I guess. But actually, what I imagine is that they might replace some of those other systems that are doing a lot of wasteful energy systems trying to keep double spending at bay, and perhaps we can actually turn to fundamental physics as a way to also prevent that.
There's one question in the YouTube comment section. So how can people find more details on quantum tokens? And it would be really nice if you can also share any paper describing more details on the implemented quantum tokens.
Yeah, okay. I have to remind myself if we have anything published on our website, but maybe if the question asker can find me on LinkedIn, for example, I'll put a link to that in the YouTube chat in a minute, and happy to follow up there.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. With that, I believe that we can move on to our next esteemed speaker in today's quantum leadership session. So, namely Fabian Klingmann, who is a PhD student in the field of quantum communications at Fraunhofer Institute für Photonische Mikrosystem. And he will present his insights on an Arduino-based low-cost quantum key distribution system. So, Fabian, there you go. I'm afraid we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It was just my microphone. I'm sorry.
No problem.
And you can see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much for the introduction. I'm Fabian Klingmann. I work at the Fraunhofer Institute for Photonic Microsystems in Dresden. And I'm part of the department for data communication and computing. We're active in a number of quantum technology fields, but I personally work on the quantum key distribution that was already mentioned a couple of times before. And in this area of quantum key distribution, we are basically having two hardware projects going on in our group. One is the free space quantum key distribution project. So we're trying to using MEMS mirrors to build a pointing acquisition and tracking system with kind of the feature that we're using Li-Fi technology that was developed in our group to transfer classical data via an optical channel and also use it as a tracking beacon. But what I want to talk about today is the other part, the miniaturization of quantum key distribution, and a bit more specifically, a project where we're trying to build an affordable quantum key distribution system. So as a motivation, it's actually pretty straightforward. We've already seen that commercial quantum key distribution systems exist. in the talk before, but they are still very expensive. Nevertheless, the demand for QKD is high. So it's very natural to try to do research in this direction. So when I started my PhD, I was actually asking myself the question, what is kind of the lowest hardware that I could implement an entire quantum key distribution system on? And yeah, this ended up to be this Arduino low-cost quantum key distribution project. And before I tell a bit more about the actual system and the implementation, I want to give a quick overview on how quantum key distribution works. The goal of quantum key distribution is to distribute a key between a transmitter, a sender, and a receiver. So in classical communications, you would send bits between them. In quantum communications, you're sending qubits. And for quantum communications, we use photons, single photons as quantum systems to transmit. And it's very common to use the polarization of these single photons to encode the information. So for the standard BB84 protocol, what you would be doing is you would have 4 different polarization states of photons that you prepare randomly. And they are sent to the receiving end where they are being measured. And then there is some kind of a common information between the transmitter and receiver end, and we can use that to generate a secret key. Why is this secret? So for that, we can imagine there is a eavesdropper sitting in between the two, trying to intercept these qubits. And here, the principle of quantum mechanics comes into play, that whenever you are measuring a quantum system, you might influence the state of the system. So what will happen is that this eavesdropper will introduce some kind of error into the forwarded message towards the receiver. And if the receiver is doing its job well, he will see this error and know that there possibly was an eavesdropper in the channel. And then the opposite of it is the interesting case. If there is no error, he can say with certainty that there was actually no eavesdropper present. So knowing how this protocol basically works, we can make a kind of requirements list for what a low-cost quantum key distribution system would need to incorporate. I made this a very simple list. So on the transmitter side, we need to prepare the photons. And actually, we need to prepare the 4 polarization states of the photons. These photons then need to be transmitted. During the transmission, especially if you're using a fiber-based channel, the polarization of the photons will be influenced by this channel, which is why on the receiver side, we need to do a compensation of these effects. We need to detect these photons and then finally do some post-processing where we estimate if the key is secure and or how secure it is. And this is what I would call a functioning system. So this is basically something that you can set up and it will work. It will produce a key. And this is also what we have now established in our lab. What is still missing are some parts that would move us towards a secure system. I will talk about them towards the end of the talk more, but for now I will directly jump into the implementation based on the Arduinos. So on the transmitter side, the challenge is to create the single photons. Actually, we're not creating single photons, but weak coherent states. That's much easier. And what we're doing for it is pulsing lasers very quickly and in very short pulses, and then using a very strong attenuators to change the intensity so that in each pulse on average there is 1 photon or even less. Creating these short pulses on an Arduino alone, it's a challenge, maybe impossible. This is why we built this PCB that will go directly on top of the Arduino, and it will, on the rising edge of one of the input pins from the Arduino, it will create one of these short pulses. You can see here, the Arduino can even set the length of these pulses by changing the frequency of a PWM signal. And we can create electrical pulses very nicely in between like 20 nanoseconds pulse width down to 1 single nanosecond. These electrical pulses are then passed through the VCSEL lasers that we're using. And the optical pulses from the VCSEL laser, they are a bit more broadened. I would assume this is because the VCSEL is a bit slow. We use off-the-shelf, very cheap VCSELs in this case. But what you can see here as well is that the Arduino can again set the optical pulse width as well. We just don't get down to the 1 nanosecond regime right now, but yeah. And all of this electronics is we have 4 times implemented. This is because of the 4 polarization states that we need to create that I talked about earlier. The easiest way to create 4 polarization states randomly is to just have 4 VCSEL lasers, and we glued on top polarization filters in the corresponding orientations. And then we can just pulse the VCSEL that we need for the corresponding state. So one thing that is very nice about this PCB is that the temporal output of the VCSELs looks very similar in between the 4 channels. This is exactly what you can see here. And then all that's need to be done is couple these 4 VCSELs into one fiber. To do this, we put a fiber collimator just in front of the 4 VCSELs. And what you can see here is basically the whole transmitter side as it is working in the lab right now. In terms of the outputs and inputs, we have a USB output, which we use to transfer the secret key to a potential user. And then there are 3 wires that are running from the transmitter to the receiver. So we have a clock signal. This clock signal is giving a reference time for the arrival times of the single photons that are being sent. We have a classical channel that we use for the classical communication. This is right now just a serial communication interface between 2 Arduinos. And then we have a single mode fiber where we pass the single photons through. And this single mode fiber exactly scrambles up the polarization state a bit, which is why we need on the receiver side the polarization compensation unit. So we're doing the polarization compensation very traditionally using 3 wave plates that are in these rotation mounts. The rotation mounts themselves can be also controlled by the Arduino on the receiver side. And then we implemented a kind of gradient descent algorithm to do the polarization correction. So the way it works is you are turning each plate by a defined step size in one direction, in the other direction. And sorry, for every direction, you're measuring the quantum bit error. You do this for all plates and you see which rotation made the best improvement of the quantum bit error. And then you commit to this rotation and just do the process all over again. This is a bit simulated data, but it shows that slowly you are recovering the original state of the polarization. So after the polarization is compensated, the next part is detecting the single photons. This is the part where we have the most optics still present in our system. So we have to detect the photons, but also do the measurement in one of 2 bases. And then this would, in traditional systems, lead to 4 the single photon detectors that are being used. We reduced this number by doing a kind of a temporal multiplexing approach. So what we're doing is we are measuring in the 2 bases, but we are delaying one basis a bit behind the other bases. And then you can see here that with 2 single photon detector signals, judging by the arriving time, we can say which bases we actually measured. And this way, with just 2 single photon detectors, we can still detect 4 states. And what I want to mention at this point is that we could easily do the same setup with just 1 single photon detector. All that you would need to do is also delay these 2 states, for example, so that they would be appearing on the same single photon detector a bit further behind. The main challenge here in terms of implementing the system on an Arduino was reading the single photon detectors. So they work in a way that they give pulses for every photon that arrives, and somehow we need to convert these pulses into arrival times. To do this, we're using commercially available time-to-digital converter boards. You can see them here. They were originally developed for LiDAR applications, I believe, but it turns out they work very well for our purpose as well. These boards have two inputs. One of them is the clock signal that I was talking about in the beginning from the receiver. The other one is the output of the single photon detector. And then they basically give us the arrival time of the single photons. And they do this with a very nice accuracy of 55 picoseconds. This is definitely more than enough for our system right now. The only thing that is a bit of a limiting factor here is the time that it takes to read the arrival times that were recorded by the time-to-digital converter to the Arduino. So this time is what right now is limiting our raw key rate. Even in the best case, we cannot get a raw key rate which is higher than roughly these 100 kilobits per second. Yeah, this is the bottleneck if you're considering channels that have very low attenuation. When we move towards real-world applications, we're usually talking about higher attenuation in the channel if you're doing over QKD over some distances. And the nice thing is that it does not scale linearly. This would be this black line. But in fact, what happens is that the time in between the photon arrivals is becoming bigger because some photons, or at some point, most photons will not arrive anymore. And then this time will be getting so big that the time it takes to read the TDCs is actually not really relevant anymore. So in the beginning here, we are limited by the time-to-digital converter reading times. And when we move towards the end of the graph, we are actually limited by the rate that we can send photons, which is a lot higher than this 100 kilobits. So with all of this, one thing that should not be neglected is the post-processing. We do all the post-processing as well on the Arduinos. For the BB84 protocol, it basically consists of 4 steps. The first one is comparing the basis in which photons were created and measured, and discarding all the photons that were measured in a different basis than they were created. The next step is then the parameter estimation. So in a perfect world, this so-called sifted key that we get from the key sifting would be perfectly identical between transmitter and receiver, but in the real world, we have effects like imperfect polarization elements and just experimental imperfections. And these effects will lead to some kind of quantum bit error, and we need to estimate this quantum bit error, because another thing that will cause this quantum bit error, as I explained in the beginning, is a potential attacker. The next step then is correcting for the quantum bit error, so making sure that the keys on the transmitter side and on the receiver side are actually identical. During this process, we will lay open some of the information on the keys, which is why we have the next step, the privacy amplification. Here we check which or how high is the amount of secret data shared between transmitter and receiver actually, and we shorten the sifted and corrected key to this length. So all of this is quite intense computationally, especially for an Arduino. So I've shown you here the maximum secret key rates that we could achieve, considering only the post-processing. And what you can see here on the x-axis is the block size. So in case of this 512 bits, what it means is that we would collect the raw key of 512 bits, and we would then do the post-processing on this raw key and achieve a secret key rate of here around 400 bits per second. And what you can see in this graph very nicely is that the a lot bigger the block size is, so The larger the part of the key is that we do the post-processing on, the faster we are becoming, which leads us to another limitation of the Arduino, which is the amount of memory. This is why the graph stops at this point, because afterwards we were running out of memory on the Arduino system. But I hope that in the future we can implement them a bit more efficiently on the memory side, so that we can even get higher key rates. Nevertheless, we're still reaching the 1 kilobits area also with our current implementation. So finally, I want to discuss some things that still need to be done to make sure that this system is actually a secure system. One thing that we need to look out for are open side channels. And right now there are two very obvious open side channels to us. One is the laser wavelength spectrum. So we're using 4 different VCSELs as the source for the 4 different states. And except for the polarization, they should be perfectly identical. But it turns out the 4 VCSELs have slightly shifted spectra, which means that a potential attacker could just look at the spectrum of a single photon and maybe deduce which state we were sending. And this is something that we need to fix in the future. Another thing that we need to do is implement a decoy state protocol. This is due to the fact that we're using the weak coherent pulses and not perfect single photons. So some of our pulses will actually contain 2, 3, or more photons. And we need to account for this fact because this is a security issue. But we can use decoy state protocols exactly for that. Another thing that we did not implement yet is an authentication of the classical channel. And then the last thing is a true random number source. So right now we're using the pseudonym random number generator, but in the future we will be integrating a quantum random number generator chip together on the Arduino board, and hopefully use true random numbers for the communication. So as a conclusion, I brought you here a picture of the final system as it is in our lab. You can see here the Arduino on the transmitter side. Here's the Arduino on the receiver side. This is all the electronics we are using for our quantum key distribution system. Then we have the fiber channel here and the optics on the receiver side. And in terms of the performance, we can transmit the photons at roughly 4 megahertz. We can receive them with a maximum raw key rate of 100 kilohertz. And the post-processing as it is now reaches about 1 kilobit per second secret key rate at the 3% quantum bit error. And all of this makes me very positive that once we combine it, we can achieve secret key rates in the range of some kilobits as well. And with this, I want to thank you for the attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Fabian, for this insightful presentation on the topic of an Arduino-based low-cost quantum key distribution system. I see Hisam has raised his hand.
Yeah, thanks very much also from my side for the talk. I was wondering, so moving from the functional system, as you said, to the secure system, how much more expensive will the device be? Will it be still cheap, let's say, or is it then comparable to real system?
I think that the most costs that we have right now is the optics on the receiver side still, and we need to improve on that. All of these changes that we will do here, I think, will not increase the cost a lot. Yeah.
Okay, and then a follow-up question. So where would you see your system has the highest impact? So is it for demonstration, to learn on it, educational, or is it also, do you see yourself like in some kind of industries maybe where you need a very cheap system, which still already is secure or offers some kind of a communication QKD security?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's a great demonstration tool because it runs on Arduinos, and you can just go into the code, and if you want to use a different error correction method, you just write it in C and you run it on the system. So that's really great. But I think the performance, if we can make it running at some kilobits per second secret key rate, it's not bad, definitely. And for some industry cases, I think it might be even enough to consider. In that case, I think we would move probably away from an Arduino system, make it a microcontroller-based system. But yeah, I wouldn't limit it to only education.
Are there any further questions? I think I saw a raised hand.
Oh, sorry, that was me, but then I saw what the time was and I figured I could maybe catch up with Fabian later. So
Sure. Thank you. Well, with that being said, thank you very much, Fabian, once again for your insightful presentation. And last but not least, we have Mark Kaplan, the CEO at VeryCloud, who will round out our discussion with his insights on the road toward quantum-enhanced data centers. So, Mark, there you go.
Let me try to see how to share my screen. Just a second, and then I'll try to go quick and not go over time. Let's share this one. Yeah. Good. So you all see my screen and you can hear me, right? Well, I
Yes.
assume you do. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so thanks a lot for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to interact with the QBN community and to present our work. Let me introduce myself. I'm Mark Kaplan, CEO and founder of VeryCloud. We are a company working in the area of quantum communication. And one of the efforts, a substantial effort that we've been performing throughout the last, since we exist, is on the design of quantum network applications. So we are very much interested in quantum cryptography and especially what lies beyond QKD. So we started hearing a little bit about it. I will try to give you our view on this question. And so here, what you can see is a number of deliverables that we produced in some of the projects that we participated to. So we're hosting this website called the Quantum Protocol Zoo on our accessible from VeryCloud's website. It's an online encyclopedia of quantum network protocols. We produced this use case report for the European Commission within this project Quantum Internet Alliance, and we also performed some research on these problems, and I will present to you some of them. So the whole the theory behind the view that we have on quantum networks, which is also very much at the foundation of this Quantum Internet Alliance project, is that we think of quantum networks as a layered architecture where each stage, let's say, corresponds to the available technology. So we know very much that today we have quantum QKD networks running all over the world, mostly test beds, but a little bit of commercial applications as well. And these networks are very good for one thing, which is running quantum key distribution, and pretty much nothing else than that. But then you can think about what happens when you have quantum repeaters, entanglement distribution, quantum memories as well, and finally quantum computing. And in fact, it's well known that whenever you have the new technology available, you want to integrate it into your quantum networks. Why? Because it unlocks some applications for quantum networks. So to each stage corresponds a technology, and to each technology corresponds a set of applications that you can now run on your network. And my goal today is to present you a few of them. at different stages of the development of quantum networks, some of these applications that we identified as being of interest for certain users. Let me put it that way. All right, so the first stage is QKD networks. So something that is already available, something that runs today. And in fact, it's also well known that you can use QKD networks not only for securing your data in communication, but also securing your data at rest. And what I mean by that is that on top of your QKD secured channel, you can run a cryptographic scheme called the secret sharing scheme. Yes, sorry, don't know what happened with the sound. So you can run a quantum secret sharing scheme, and that would ensure that whenever you store your data into this quantum enhanced infrastructure, an eavesdropper that wants to attack, an eavesdropper that wants to recover your secret data needs to attack several servers all at the same time, right? And to achieve this level of security, so it's not only one server. This is what I mean. It's several servers, and several here is a parameter of the encryption. But most importantly, in order to achieve this level of security, which is everlasting security of data at rest, and of course quantum resistance, you really need this combination of quantum key distribution and secret sharing, classical secret sharing scheme. So it is just like a storage system that you can use with QKD and deploy it at the scale of a data center today. This is known research based on a paper referenced here. We've been working on that. First, we have an implementation of this protocol that you can test right now, not on a QKD network if you access it online, but it's also deployed on some of the existing test beds. More importantly, we also did some follow-up research in the topic in which we showed that you can secure your data even more if you have not one QKD enhanced network or data center, but several ones. So you can have several QKD networks, QKD testbeds, QKD enhanced data centers, whatever you have access to, connected to each other through PQC. And by changing the classical encryption layer, which was this Shamir secret sharing, so we replace it with something else. And what you get now is a storage system in which an eavesdropper that wants to learn your data needs to attack either several QKD networks and not only one, or recover the data from several QKD networks, or one QKD networks and all the PQC secure communication. Right, so this corresponds to, it's strictly more secure than having a single QKD network. And what I really like about this application is that it challenges the fact that, in general, security is the least secure part of your system. So here we use PQC secure links, but still we combine all this security in a way that PQC is not the security bottleneck, and you, for example, need to break both PQC and the security within your QKD network. Next stage is at the repeater network stage. So repeaters means that think about the QKD network, but where you can send in single qubit quantum states from one place to another one in the network with unlimited distance, unbounded distance. So this is what repeaters do. We know that they require a lot of work, and we know that they also will be available eventually before quantum computers. And what we know from the literature is that you unlock here something which is confidential computing. Confidential computing is a super important part of classical encryption and cryptography. What you get with what you're trying to achieve here is a joint computation between two parties, my two servers here, but so each party brings its own data, but none of them wants the other one to learn its data. So on the example here, what the two servers do is computing the intersection of the two tables, but without revealing all the other entries of the database. We know that, so in general, confidential computing has numerous applications. Think about where all the applications where you don't want to share your data, or even you're not allowed to share your data. So fraud detection, private medicine, and so on and so on. I wrote like an introduction to this topic, and I won't go into the details here because of the time constraints, but it's something that is well established from the literature. Next stage is, of course, related to what Duncan was talking about earlier, but in a more elaborate setup. I'm thinking about memory networks. Now you're allowed to send states and store them for an unlimited amount of time. So we heard about quantum tokens, but you have a whole like larger set of protocols that all use more or less the same properties in order to prove security. So quantum tokens, there is unclonable encryption where you can store your data on a server, but being sure that those data cannot be copied to another server. So it gives you more control over your data. And of course, certified deletion, you can store your data on a server. And when you ask for erasing the data, the server can send you a proof that those data have been erased. So these are all tasks that are impossible to achieve classically, but you can now do them when you have quantum systems. Finally, last but not least, at the last stage of quantum communication networks, another area of great interest is secure quantum cloud computing. So now think about having quantum computers available, and when you connect so you have already quantum computers available in the cloud. This is the very first interface that IBM has given to its cloud quantum computer. But of course, when you use them, you have to send a clear copy of the program that you want to run on the quantum computer. So there is no security. You have to share everything with the quantum computing operator. Now it turns out that there is a very well-known solution to this problem or to this issue of privacy, which is very, so to say, easy to achieve. If you can connect to your quantum computer using, if you can send quantum states to your quantum computer. And when I say quantum states, I mean exactly the same set of states as in quantum key distribution. So if you have a QKD box, the ones that are available today, and you can send those states to the quantum computer, and the quantum computer absorbs those states, store them in its memory, and starts computing with them, then it's possible to run like a completely secure quantum cloud computing stack. And by security here, what we mean is for two properties. One is blindness, so the quantum computing operator doesn't learn anything about inputs, outputs, or the computation itself. And second property is verifiability. So this very, very light client that only is that can only send single qubit quantum states can verify that the computation performed on the quantum computer is correct. So the quantum computer hasn't deviated from the computation that the client has paid for example. And here we have performed some lab experiment here, which is not only a secure delegated quantum computing, but also in a multipartite setting. So we had two parties, actually. We didn't use a quantum computer. First, we don't have a quantum computer, but we used the one from the research lab. to demonstrate this with two parties. And if you want to think about why distributed computation is important, think about distributed quantum machine learning. You can have one party holding the data, one with the algorithm, the other one with the QPU, and no one learns anything about. So if you want to train your algorithm, you would receive at the end of the protocol your trained machine learning model without learning the data itself. And the QPU operator, again, learns nothing in the process. Right. So just to finish, sorry, before I finish, I want to also mention this other initiative right now. We heard about in Pascal's talk how we can use quantum computers for cybersecurity. We at the moment we have a very strong engagement with the blockchain community. The reason for that is two things. The first one is that this is an area where they need secure. So whenever there is something more secure available, it's valuable, but also it's a huge accelerator of it has the blockchain community has a long track, good record at taking theoretical work and making it practical. So we already identified some areas of interest, such as, of course, quantum money, one-shot signatures, one-time programs. But there is a long way to make something practical on the way here. Okay, so just to wrap up, the main messages that I wanted to pass today is that beyond QKD, there are lots of applications in the field of quantum cybersecurity and quantum communications, some at the various stages of the development of your hardware. So even with single qubit quantum states, you can do many things. It's not only quantum money. Sorry, it's not only QKD. We've already heard about quantum tokens, but there's a lot of things beyond that. Assessing the usability of each task is a hard problem. You need practical deployment, and the current stage of quantum test beds is still very, very low, so it's difficult to assess. And of course, I mean, lots of people say that the secure quantum cloud computing is a killer app for quantum networks. I think it's very convenient to say that because it's also the furthest you can think about in time. But it's true that whenever we'll have practical uses of quantum computers, this issue of privacy will be extremely relevant, and the solution to this problem is already there. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take questions as well now, if there are some.
Thank you very much, Mark, for this informative presentation on the topic of the road toward quantum-enhanced data centers. In case anyone has a question, please feel free to ask or submit it in the comment section. We have a few more minutes left for answering your questions. Well, yes, hey Sam.
Yeah, I mean, it's not maybe really a question, but I was just wondering, I mean, now with AI and typically, let's say, if you turn on the TV or look at the internet, you see that there is a need of data centers, a lot of data centers in the US, and that's why they have initiated the Stargate program and so on. So can you maybe comment a little bit on that? So what you see, how data centers will grow in the future, especially maybe for AI? Is there like a big growing market, and is there also the need for quantum solution in that direction?
I mean, there is definitely a growing need for security, that's for sure. And once again, the area where the security becomes practical right now is mostly in this blockchain industry, just to make it clear. However, what we try to I mean, the message that we are trying to pass here at VeriCloud is that, again, something that we heard before is that in quantum is not just about the threat or the answer to the threat, but also there's a whole range of opportunities that remain to be explored.
Well, thanks again. I see no further questions. Thanks to everyone who participated in the comment section on YouTube and also on Zoom. I would say that that brings us to the very close and end of today's quantum leadership session. I would like to extend really big thank you to our distinguished speakers for sharing their quantum expertise with us today on the topic of quantum cybersecurity, and surely to all participants for joining us. Lastly, I would like to also remind you that this session is being live streamed on YouTube, so the recording will be available on our YouTube channel shortly after the end of the event. And of course, to just remind you, if you haven't done already, please like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social media to stay updated on all of the future QBN related events. Again, thank you very much for being part of this important discussion, and really stay tuned on more updates. We hope to see you at our upcoming sessions, which were outlined earlier in the presentation. So yeah, I wish everyone a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.